15 this time in 2020. It's lights out and away we go. Hamilton then gets away well, Verstappen off the line well, and he's already wheel-to-wheel with Valtteri Bottas, and there is Alex Albon on the inside of Bottas as well, and Perez coming up on the inside of Verstappen, who is now in second place. Hamilton, Verstappen, Perez, then Albon and Ricciardo. Bottas has lost 4 places already as they file their way through, and Lance Stroll going off the track already, and that is that damage for Lando Norris. That's certainly damage, and a big fire there as they exited out of turn 3, and that looks very nasty indeed, and unsurprisingly that is a red flag that has been put out by race control already. That was horrendous as the car went into the barrier.
So unusual to see. We think it's one of the Hasses that's gone into the barrier. So unusual to see a Formula One car with all the safety cells and fuel and what have you immediately going in flames. Of course, the driver is well protected with fireproof clothing, helmet, gloves, boots and everything, but that just went straight up.
Looking at the timing screens, I think that's Romain Grosjean that has gone in. Yes, I've just seen Kevin Magnussen file past there. That's Romain Grosjean that has gone into the barriers there. And although that is a slow corner down at turn 3, but you're still making your exit there at about 140 miles an hour. Slow corner by Formula One standards, and not much runoff as well, and no way was there any possibility of avoiding contact with the barrier. And just looking there, Lando Norris, you can see his front wing scraping on the ground, so he's had contact. Lance Stroll we saw going off the track as well.
Yeah, Stroll was bouncing across the runoff area there between 2 and 3, but it was some way behind, wasn't it? Somehow the Haas just spun around into the barrier. I'm trying to work out what it was that would just instantly go up in flames like that. It's the fuel cells in the middle of the car, and obviously then all the engine and gubbins is behind you.
What's up, guys? I'm live.
Just immediately go up like that.
Just went into
Romain Grosjean in this, the first of his final 3 races in Formula One, and what looked like a very nasty crash into the barrier at the start here. No news on him.
I don't know what happened there.
How he is down at turn 3. So we just wait for any news whatsoever. I think he's already out of the car. I'm being told that he is out of the car, Romain Grosjean, which is just the best news that we all want to hear at the moment.
Yeah, Grosjean's out the car. That's good news.
Can you hear me okay, Crofty? I managed to go back and actually see what happened, and it looks like it's contact between a Toro Rosso. I think it's Danny Kvyat. It comes across.
Daniel Fiat had contact with Romain Grosjean when Grosjean went to the wall.
To the track, it's the barrier that's coming at an angle. He hits it at basically the same angle both sides, which was where the impact was.
There he is. This is live shots. Romain Grosjean in the medical car, talking there with the medical team. Dr. Ian Roberts on the scene, as you would expect, instantaneously, and great news to see Romain Grosjean talking there, not just for us in the commentary box, for you back home as well, but for these guys and girls in the Haas garage who would have been very worried for a few moments there. That's just brilliant to see Romain sat in the medical car now and talking away.
Yeah, I mean, the fuel tanks are very carefully sealed. They have dry brakes on all of the unions, and I've not seen a Formula One car catch fire like that for a very long time. I'm thinking back to...
Yeah, geez, that was a big crash for Romain Grosjean.
Back in the old days when the cars used to break up and spill the fuel. That's highly unusual.
We see things ignite, you know, when oil leaks onto to an exhaust, for instance. Pierre Gasly had it in practice just recently in Portimao. But in those sort of situations, often the driver has time, Martin, to pull to the side of the track, stop, and then jump out of the car. In that situation.
Yeah, Grosjean's all right. He's got out the car. He's fine.
If not tenths of a second as well. So the session stopped, as you can see. The race stopped, and Romain Grosjean in the back of that medical car. The race stops with Lewis Hamilton leading from Max Verstappen. Grosjean rather gingerly walking out of that medical car, so there will be a
Yeah,
delay
Grosjean walked up the medical car.
whilst they clear the Haas away, whilst Romain Grosjean goes to the medical centre, whilst they can make any repairs to the barriers that they might need to as well. And he's been helped into the back of an ambulance and will go straight to the medical centre here at the circuit. Stretcher there for him if he needs it. It's quite an impact there. As I say, that corner, making your exit there at about 140 miles an hour. And didn't look like, at the brief moment that we saw, there was any deceleration of speed.
No, and it's well out of the corner actually, where it's gone into the barrier, and the barrier is coming back towards the racetrack. Not an area you would normally expect.
Yeah, everything's alright so far. It's red flag still session start. It's going to be a long red flag because they need to fix all the barriers.
Comfortable and confident about exactly what to envision, but it is a very, very high speed impact.
Yeah, high speed impact.
Quite a long way out, turn 3 actually, and it's gone clean into the barriers, and obviously something's ruptured immediately in the impact. So you have 4 layers of fireproof clothing on. The base layer you can see there with Valtteri Bottas, 3 layers of overalls, and your fireproof gloves, boots, balaclava, and your crash helmet. Of course, there's a fire extinguisher in the car, and it's as well protected as it can be, and the bag tank where the fuel is. Of course, you do have quite a lot of oil on board the car, but it's that you could put up to 110 kilograms of fuel in the car to start with. This is quite a high.
Yeah, I'm back, guys. I'm back.
So that's the amount of.
Yeah, lucky the drivers have fireproof clothes and everything. Have a fire extinguisher now.
I'm hoping as well that there were no marshals in that particular vicinity. You've been out on the track, Martin. The marshal posts down there. There is a marshal post at turn 3, but if the incident happened just a little bit further,
yeah, lap 1 chaos.
No marshals just on the other side of the fence. This being the FIA's weekend of thanks for the volunteers and the marshals that help us all go racing week after week in Formula 1, of course, and in all forms of motorsport. A big thank you to all those who give up their time to ensure that we can go racing. A weekend of thanks from the FIA. As President John Todd is here at Bahrain Grand Prix this weekend. I see on the grid just before the start of the race. You have 57 laps to complete. Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, 57 laps still, yeah.
He gets away very well, as does Verstappen.
Yeah, Hamilton got a really, really good start. And then Grosjean spun and then he went into the barriers, then your car just went up in flames.
Concertina effect in the first corner. You can see just at the bottom of your screen, Lance Stroll goes wide. Now this is after turn 3, and you can see Grosjean, one car out there, and then Grosjean to the right-hand side.
My God, it's torn the car in half. No wonder the fuel came out of it.
Yeah.
I said the fuel was in the middle.
Go right back, just need to go to the toilet.
Whoa. And he's just gone straight across Daniel Kvyat there, as you can see.
That's extraordinary. Yeah.
It's just the car
has gone through the barrier, you see. The car's gone through the barrier, and that's then been sort of used as a wrench, as it were, to literally rip the car in half.
Wow, there's Romain Grosjean.
Unbelievable.
As the medical delegate, obviously the medical car starts the race behind the pack and would have been straight on the scene. Romain Grosjean jumping as fast as he can over the barrier. There were 3 people on the other side of the barrier who have all had a bit of a lucky escape, I think. There was a tyre that came off and went over the barrier as well.
He's more or less stepped out of the front of that car. That's a miracle.
I have not seen a car like that in my time commentating on Formula 1. I've never seen a Formula 1 car do that. And that's brilliant. A round of applause as these images are being shown in the pit lane from Romain's teammate.
Back garden back.
To see his teammate and friend hurdling the barrier there and escaping without injury.
Still red flag, yeah. 2 out of 57 laps.
Pierced the barrier like a tin opener.
I know, he just went, he didn't hit the barrier, he went through the barrier. high speed impact.
And the team,
High
and
speed.
the designers and all the stress analysis, but they're constantly trying
And
to
away,
improve
there's the top
the
three:
structural
Hamilton, Verstappen, and
integrity
Perez.
of what's called the survival cell, the monocoque we refer to it as, or chassis quite often. And that's just saved his life, because that is extraordinary.
Yeah.
Because with the fire, it needs to be out of there anyway.
Yeah, there is going to be a very lengthy delay here. That is
Gee,
why
the car is literally half off.
repaired, and that's
The car's half off.
of a moment, and already on the scene.
What? Oh
So
my
officials
god, that crash.
To start clearing the debris. of
Literally, the car, he went through the barrier and
also
half
to
of the
make
car
sure that those
was gone.
barriers, are
Half of the
repaired
car's in the
properly.
barrier and half of the car's
You
out
remember back
out the
to-
barrier.
And there's that tyre that I said
You
that
can,
had gone
and all the engine and
leaping over the
fuel are
barrier
leaking and
as-
everything.
somewhere in the desert.
You can see the tethers have done some work because they're absolutely shredded, but they can't be infinitely strong. The tethers holding the wheels on.
If you remember back
Jesus,
to
half of the engine
Silverstone a
is
few
in the
years ago
barrier.
when we were in the commentary box,
The
if you
engine
right,
and everything.
had that first
That was
lap,
it.
accident where the barriers
Jesus.
were broken. We waited about an hour
This
to
looks
get them repaired.
the halo underneath the barrier there. But
Yeah.
So he's had to get out of that somehow. So it basically, Roman went with the front of the chassis.
Yeah, he went with the front of the chassis.
Extraordinary.
Well, the halo saved his life as well.
The chassis.
The
He
halo
went, was
would
right
have
in front of
had
it.
the
He
impact
went with it.
into the barrier. Once upon a time, that might have been the driver's head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get caught up there. So the halo very much doing its job.
And apparently Roman's got some burns to his leg. It's not a huge surprise there, I don't think. But
Yeah, session stopped.
But also with the higher noses on the nose seems as if it's just literally pierced between the two strips of the barrier, isn't it?
Michael Massey,
Yeah, it's going to be a
race
really long red flag until it gets back going.
to oversee these barrier repairs. This is going to take some time. It
Yeah.
really is. Ted Kravitz to you.
Going to take lots of
Those
time to
images, those
fix the
replays
barriers.
have been watched by a frankly shocked pit lane. Mechanics, engineers, and not least drivers, many of whom saw it, all of whom saw it firsthand, some of whom saw it in their mirrors, and many of whom saw it coming up from behind. Charles Leclerc, one particularly, who was immediately on the radio to his Ferrari
Yeah,
team,
immediately.
saying that, oh my goodness, that was a massive one. Who was it? He was told it was Grosjean, and then pushing for information. Is he okay? The drivers recognised the gravity. of
That
situation,
barrier,
of
I
that
don't know
crash.
about
Yes,
that.
they all put
The
on
barrier
their
is
fireproof
literally-
underwear every time they get
Jesus.
in their car. Yes, they put on a balaclava, a fireproof balaclava. Yes, they put on a 3-layer Nomex fire suit overalls. But I don't think any of them ever expect the car to go up like that.
Yeah, none of the drivers expect to have literally the car just go through flames instantly.
If you're just joining us, this was the start.
Yeah, Perez got into third place really nicely.
Involving Romain Grosjean, who went straight on into the barriers.
Yeah,
Look,
straight into the barriers.
for the Alpha Tauri at the bottom of your screen of Daniel Fiat on the right hand side.
Daniel Fiat hit Romain Grosjean,
It's like the car was just
made contact,
all the way to the right hand side.
and it just went through the barrier at high speed. Yeah, it went through the barrier, then it just caught on fire, and half the car just teared apart. Half of the car.
But quite frankly, marvellous as well. That is
It's good that he got out of Romain
At
Grosjean.
that point in the flaming chassis, but Roman decided to come across the pack, look, and Daniel
Yeah.
Fiat couldn't do anything about
When
that.
it,
And he met
Daniel
the
Fiat
barriers
couldn't do
coming
nothing
towards
about
the
it.
track at about
He just
30
went through the barriers,
Just a misunderstanding.
and
in the
half the
pack
car teared
there,
apart.
because they were basically ahead of Romain Grosjean there. They were
Jesus.
tripping over each other a little bit, so he steered
High.
right to go around them. But he
Them
wasn't
cars go
clear
at
of
high
the
speed.
AlphaTauri on
That's
his
why there's
inside.
always a safety car and a medical car.
on board now.
Behind.
Romain Grosjean. And this
Yeah,
is
there's
the
always a
start of
safety
the
car,
race.
medical car for safety. That's why it's good.
Obviously, you're with us.
Yeah,
just switching on
Grosjean
your
came
TV
alongside. Fiat
just
couldn't
to
do
warn
nothing
you
about
that
it, and
there is an
Grosjean
impact coming
went
up
into the barrier,
now with the barrier.
and
I don't think there's
and
going to look
half the
very
car
pretty
just
at
tearing
all.
apart.
Kimi Raikkonen going off the track on the left-hand side now. Grosjean goes across, and thankfully
And the camera
we
cuts
freeze
out.
it right there. We don't want to see the impact. We really don't.
Oh,
Romain
what a
Grosjean
speed crash.
having to hurdle away from the scene of a big fire.
And that's the medical delegate who starts in the Mercedes estate at the back of the grid. So they've been able to stop immediately.
High speed,
And look at that. That looks like Alan van der Merwe, the medical car driver, with the Dr. Ian Roberts as well. And that van der Merwe, Alan's putting them out.
Yeah, look, he got
putting the flames out on their overalls.
But they would have been first on the scene because they, as you say, start behind the pack. And every time I see that, it just looks more and more horrific. Tears, I'm sure, in the Haas garage for many of Romain's friends and colleagues.
I know. If they didn't have that halo, Grosjean probably
involved.
would have had a high chance
Romain
of
Grosjean
dying. But
in 179
that's
Formula
why
1
it was
Grand
good to have
Prix.
the halo.
10-time podium finisher in this sport, but never will have he experienced
It was good to have the halo,
accident
If they didn't have that
quite
halo,
like that.
they.
But yes, I think that was Alan van der Merwe, the medical
out,
car driver.
He could have
They
died.
would carry obviously the
That
fire
fire would
extinguishers in that medical car, but it would make
Halo's
sense that
good,
he
man.
is
That's why
the
they
first man
invented the halo.
on the scene, whilst Dr. Ian Roberts goes straight to the patient. He picks up the fire extinguisher to assist. The marshals and those on the other side of the barrier obviously making a very hasty backward movement because the car was coming towards them. That barrier, Martin, it as you say, it sticks out away from more barriers down there to
it's
the
a
right-hand
service
side.
road, isn't
Service
it?
road.
You can see where the service road comes in.
The service needs cleaning because all the ash and stuff are there.
And
the barrier needs
what
fixing.
that gap is for.
It's gonna
Access
be a
to
long
the racetrack.
green red flag, but they'll give it.
And of course, the Mercedes that follows them doesn't get away anywhere near as fast as the Formula 1 cars. So they're always going to be 20 seconds behind, 20, 30 seconds behind at that point.
So they're now cutting that barrier. We can see, I think, the sparks flying from the cutting machinery. They're going to just get rid of that barrier. I'm assuming have something to replace it with as well. Going back to previous experience, we waited an hour when Kimi Raikkonen went into the barriers at Silverstone.
Yeah, the barrier will be all right. The barrier just needs
2013, was it? 2013, 2012?
To use all the tools they've got, haven't they?
And you've got a car that's gone through the barrier there, and a halo as well. Remember when the halo first came in and people speculated if you have an incident like that involved fire, would a driver get trapped? Would they be able to get out? Well, there's your answer. They can. The drivers can very much get out. We had a conversation, Martin, in practice with Paul di Resta and Karun Chandok. We were talking about salary caps for Formula 1 drivers, and Paul and Karun very much making the point that you talk about how much money these drivers get paid. Don't forget, they risk their life on a weekly basis for our entertainment and our enjoyment. And if ever there is proof of the risks and the dangers of motorsport, well, it is the wreckage of that Haas car that we're watching now.
Yeah, it will be taken away and analysed, I'm sure, for how it coped in various ways with the impact. And they are tested rigorously, you know, with head-on impacts, side-on impacts, noses into the sides of cars for when a car spun and another one T-bones it or something. So the rollover cage is the bar is pressed like crazy to check for the integrity of that, and that's definitely, as I said, saved a driver's life.
Looking at it before the impact, is Esteban Ocon, obviously great friends with Romain Grosjean, part of the trio of French drivers in Formula 1, along with Pierre Gasly as well. Just talking there to Aurélie Donzelot, who is the communication staff down at the Renault team. When you looked at Grosjean going across the track, did that look to you like he was making that move, or before the contact with Fiat, was there something pulling on the car? Was there a problem with the car, or was that just Romain just making that move to try and gain some position?
From what I saw of it, it was Romain, you know, registering ahead of him, cars going slowly as they were scuffling really, and pulling to the right. But Danny Kvyat was already halfway alongside. It would be my first take on that.
Thank you to our heroes is the message in Bahrain this weekend, to the first responders in Bahrain that are in the grandstands that have helped during the COVID crisis. This is Jean Todt, the FIA president, going straight over to Dr. Ian Roberts, Formula One's first responder in an incident like this, and going straight over to thank him for everything he and his medical car driver Alan van der Merwe did when they were straight on the scene. And we have a delay of a minimum of 45 minutes, we're being told by race control, who have just flashed up that message. 45 minutes minimum delay before the start of this race, as Kevin Magnussen
45-minute delay.
sits and talks through, well, what's to come and what has just happened to his teammate and friend Romain Grosjean. And we can go down to the Haas garage now. Rachel Brooks is with the team principal, Gunther Steiner.
Gunther, first of all, just ask you for an update on Romain, how he is.
The latest what I've got, he's doing okay. Obviously, he didn't have any deep medical. I don't want to make a medical comment here, but he had light burns on his hands and his ankles where the glove is with the over his light stuff. So obviously he's shaking, and for sure he's going through all the checks which he needs to do after an impact like this. But he's conscious, he's fine. But I didn't have any direct contact with him. Just
I'm gonna go drop and follow my Twitch. So, my Twitch link is down below.
And I think I want to thank the rescue crews which were there very quick. I didn't see who it was yet, but the marshals and the FIA people, they did a great job, you know, because it was scary. It is scary, you know what happened.
Yeah, it was scary.
Yeah, we've seen the reactions of everybody in the pit lane as they've watched that footage back, and we haven't seen a crash or an accident like that for a very long time. But clearly, these safety measures that we've brought in, things like the halo,
yeah, halo saved,
no doubt.
Absolutely. I mean, when you see what is going on out there, if you see the barrier while they're torn down, it's like unbelievable. But I think we were lucky by being unlucky, you know. I mean, it's better, I prefer that luck than any racing luck. So he seems to be doing good. Hopefully there is nothing coming, but you know, it's we got away with it, I think.
And just any clue on what caused it? Was it simply him moving across the track and catching Danny's car? There was nothing wrong with the car at all?
It looked like he was just moving across and went over the front wheel and just crashed with full speed in the barrier. That's what it looks to be. I mean, I just have seen the footage you guys have seen. I've not seen any more, so that's what it looks like. And
had red flags.
As long as he's good, that's the most important thing.
Do you think there's any chance we won't restart this race? Do you think?
I would think so. I mean, they're repairing the barriers, and I think they will
fix the barrier. That means they can restart the race and clean up all the track and the tarmac.
To be honest, but
that's how they can
just seeing
restart the race.
pictures, it looks like they are doing the repair work.
We're very, very glad he's okay, and thank you very much, Gunther, for coming out to talk to us.
Yeah, he's okay. That's good.
Oh, absolutely. The communications department at the Haas F1 team say that Romain has some minor burns on his hands and ankles. Otherwise, he is okay, and obviously with the doctors now, Kevin Magnussen walking through the paddock.
Yeah, Kevin Magnussen walking through the paddock.
Commentary box, Martin, is very near.
It's a red flag, so they can go to the
where the FIA's medical helicopter,
where they usually
I think, is firing itself up, and it wouldn't be at all surprising if
so
Romain isn't helicoptered to a hospital in Manama
car was cut in half.
for a check there. But the team's saying minor burns on his hands and ankles, but otherwise he is okay.
Yeah, it's a piece of barrier that I think will, when we turn up next year, have a conveyor belt and the Tech Pro and other protection, sometimes tyres in a very carefully structured way. But it's a long way out of the corner. I think that's what's really added to this incident and impact is you know, it's not the a normal firing line of where a car would go off on the way in or on the way out of a corner. It's kind of a third of the way down the straight, actually.
Oh no.
Haas team just
turning up
to pick up the pieces of their car that is left, the chassis that is left after this particular incident from the start.
From Valtteri Bottas, cost Alex Albon a bit of momentum.
Hit the barrier.
So
Perez's race start was better than
but Bottas then obviously on his back foot.
But Hamilton got
that's where the scuffle was. Look, right in the middle of the pack.
Right in the middle of the pack.
Roman's registering that. Look, ahead of him now are 4 or 5 cars, and but the retardation of the front of that monocoque must have been instant. it's gone nowhere, has it? Look,
Yeah,
it's gone
absolutely.
It's gone
5
absolutely
meters
nowhere.
down the barriers. So just the retardation alone was enough. Now he's sitting in a ball of flames. There's the two guys from the medical car we
Grosjean's in
talked
the
to, Dr. Ian
flames.
Roberts and Alan van der Merwe.
So Dr. Ian Roberts has gone obviously straight to the incident and drags Roman away. Alan van der Merwe with the fire extinguisher, and he got from the boot of the Mercedes estate.
So he's already, obviously Roman's already out of the car at that point.
Yeah.
So he's survived the retardation, the impact, and the fire.
This is where Grosjean cuts across.
Yeah. So Roman was having, there were 5 or 6 cars, you know, sort of scuffling around ahead of him. He saw an opportunity, and also he was going to run into them if he didn't move to the right.
This
George
is what it
got,
looks like on board from George Russell's.
Start the line.
Yeah, who had a horrible start and ends up at the back.
Down
And
in 18th.
Yeah, he's going to. Now watch ahead look in turn 2 as they all get together. That's what slowed the pack.
You'll have seen the racing point of Lance Stroll go off the track as
Yeah,
well.
Lance
He
Stroll
made
got off the track
contact
as
with
well,
his
but
teammate
not
for
that
next
bad,
year, Sebastian
badly.
Vettel. Kimi Raikkonen heading off to the left-hand side of the track, right-hand side as we look now. And you see that one of the tyres has gone straight across the track. We saw one over the barrier, but the impact was so severe. The other wheel, say tyres, it's the whole wheel, has gone bouncing across the circuit. And there we can see
so
Roman.
Roman's getting himself. Yeah, he was in the flames for a long time, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Getting
Absolutely.
himself out.
He was in the
And
flames
this
for
is
a long
why they will
time.
perform extraction tests. The drivers
Yeah, they got
and the FIA time the drivers getting out of a car, and before the halo was introduced, they would go through quite a few tests at various angles of a chassis, a dummy chassis that they had with a halo on, just to time how quickly it would be for a driver to get out. And you can see now why Roman would have burns, minor burns to his hands, because he was in that fire and having to put his hands down, Martin, to help himself get out quite so quickly.
Yeah, and you could see him shaking his hand,
Yeah.
trying to get rid of some heat at that moment. So getting out of there quickly was absolutely pivotal. So what happens now is we will get a restart. There's a 10-minute warning. There's a very precise, you can see the back end of that car now where the fuel cell will be. There's a very precise procedure now to restart this. It will be a standing start, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And but it starts with a 10-minute warning whenever they're satisfied the barriers are close to being fixed, or indeed fixed.
Obviously, everyone watching on the screens in the garages and in the pit lane.
I'll do right back.
When they saw
I'll
it
say it,
live
actually.
or on the replay, the universal reaction of horror on the faces of all those in Formula One. I've got some more news coming through from the Haas team, from Stuart Morrison, their communications director, who said that Roman is on his way to hospital. He has a suspected broken rib or suspected broken ribs. Brackets to be confirmed.
Medical
and
team
will update
has
us more
informed
when
us
he
saying,
knows more himself.
Grosjean has got a
Sheer
suspect of
impact
a
and,
broken
as you say,
rib.
Martin, the retardation,
Or
the
broken
deceleration
rib,
of that
so
car.
you're going to be
That
taken
wouldn't
to
be a
hospital.
surprise at all. Damon Hill,
Yeah, you
part
might
of
have
our
a
team
broken
on Sky
rib.
Sports F1 for this Bahrain Grand Prix this weekend. Damon, you'd have been watching as well at the start. And your initial reactions, please.
Well, like everyone, David, you know, absolute shock and horror initially on seeing that. And I think I was just thinking the drivers going down the straight would have looked in their mirrors and probably would have seen the flames. And I think this so long, or, you know, we just haven't seen anything like that, as Martin was saying, since something like Gerhard's accident in Imola all those years ago. I mean, it's such an unusual sight to see a fuel fire. And then to see how he actually was impacted the barriers and gone straight through. I think we can't jump to any conclusions at all, but it very much looks like the halo has certainly saved Roman from
yeah, it did save
worse
Roman.
injury there.
It saved
and
him.
the absolutely dramatic photographs of him getting out of the car, and thank goodness he was able to do that.
Damon, how does an accident like this then affect the other 19 drivers and their state of mind going into a restart in what will be half an hour's time or so? How difficult is it for the other drivers when we see accidents of this nature?
I think it's extremely difficult. I think you know, we've seen images of the drivers now looking up at the monitors and looking up at the screens, so everyone's been watching what's the replays, and thankfully we're watching a replay of a survival. And so they are now left under no illusions as to quite how dangerous Formula One is and their job is. And I know that none of them had any illusions about how dangerous it was, but it's something different when you see it graphically illustrated like that, and they'll all be delighted to see that Roman's out of the car.
Absolutely. Damon, thanks ever so much indeed. Roman not only out of the car, but according to the team, has some minor burns on his hands and feet and a suspected broken rib or ribs.
Yeah, suspected broken rib.
He's on his way to hospital where he will be fully examined, and we wish him well, and when I see him back in the paddock when we return to Bahrain later this week. For the second race here, Jeff Simmons, the race team coordinator down at Haas. You can see in conversation the race team operations manager, long time member of the Formula One circus, if you want to call it a circus, was with Renault in their years when they were winning world championships, and has been down at Haas, and one of the great guys in Formula One. Right, let's head to the Skypad and Karun Chandok.
Yeah, Crofty, we managed to dig up the onboards, which I know you guys have seen quite a few angles, but I'm just going to play through first with Nicholas Latifi, looking from behind. So just pause it here as they come out of turn 2. That there is Roman, that there is Daniel Kvyat. So as they're going up the hill, I'm on board with Latifi, and as you guys pointed out, there's a lot going on up ahead. So we had an Alfa Romeo out here. Now, Roman, at this point, you could see the car, he's already started to angle towards this side of the track. And as we're going to go on board with him later, but he's quite a sharp angle. I think Martin picked up on it from the helicopter shot. That's quite a sharp angle that he's gone across the track. And there's absolutely
reserve
no
driver,
there of Daniel Kvyat. You know, he was carrying on his trajectory. He wouldn't have expected for the Haas to come across, and that's the point of contact there, where the two cars have touched, and then of course we know what happened next. I'm going to go on board here with Romain because there's a little bit of debris that we can just see, so we're going to slow it down here. Lance Stroll is the car on the right, who is off in the runoff area over there, and whether the bit of debris come off his car or not, it's quite hard to tell. But when he's rejoined there, I think it has, because there's a little bit. I'll just roll along because you can see it now. It's starting to come into view. If we just go along a little bit longer, there, this bit of debris is, watch as I just roll it along, that's coming straight towards Roman's tyre. If I clear the magnifying glass, you'll see it. It comes straight towards his front right tyre, and that sort of coincides with the point where he starts to turn right. So I don't know if he noticed the debris and it prompted some sort of reaction from him,
and
or if he
they're
thought
putting a new one on there, but
this
I don't know.
Alpha here might have an issue and he wanted to get away from getting into an incident there and making potential contact. So for whatever reason at that point, Roman, if you look at his hands now, just watch his hands at the bottom of the screen, he starts to turn right now quite sharply, and this is where he's moving into the path of Kvyat's Alpha Tauri, and I mean there's quite a sharp turn to be doing on the straight, of course.
Yeah, it's quite a sharp turn. He turned onto the right,
and
you
what
see it
happens
had
next
nothing
we know. So very, very lucky. I mean, honestly, we were all just saying a huge thanks to all the work the FIA has done, because you know, a few years ago, he would not have been that lucky. I've never ever seen a car
he wouldn't be that
go
lucky,
through a barrier and a driver be able to get out like that. So
the halo,
very. I think Roman in particular, but I think the sport on the whole, we should be very thankful for all the safety work that's happened over the last 5 decades.
Absolutely. Thanks ever so much, Karun. The FIA continually pushing for a safer and safer motorsport, and never stop looking at how to make this sport as safe as it could possibly be. Obviously at high speeds you are always going to get the risk of crashes such as this. This is the scene live just after turn 3 where the barriers have been removed.
So are they going to be able to bring in some of those concrete barriers and replace that quite quickly? But I would have thought having to pile
they're bringing some concrete barriers.
Is definitely not the work.
Yeah, they're bringing concrete barriers.
And it's not like you can just bring in a layer or 3 layers of Tech Pro. You need something solid behind that, don't you?
Yeah, Tech Pro is a suspension system, isn't it, rather than
as safe as it
a containment system.
Obviously at high speeds, you are always going to get race director. The risk of crashes such as this. This is the scene. Looking how they can get those you are always going to get to the garage as well. Kravitz, to you.
Well, everyone's just taking stock here in the paddock. The heroes of the day, not only Romain Grosjean, who's just been helicoptered to hospital in downtown Manama, but also Dr. Ian Roberts and the medical car driver, Alan
and the barriers are all laid out there. They're going to bring some barriers there.
I just gave
and not metal, the concrete barriers.
Thumbs up to Dr. Ian Roberts. He gave one back. He's fine. His bottom of his fire suit has got fire extinguishant all over it. It looks pretty filthy, but it's obviously done its job. And Van der Merwe's just having a bottle of water. They're just debriefing with their FIA colleagues down here while they take stock of the whole situation. The FIA president, Jean Todt, has been to the medical centre to see Romain Grosjean himself. He wanted to do that before Grosjean was airlifted to hospital. He's now come back. So he's got the full picture from the man himself. I think you can see Alan van der Merwe now. Can you, Crofty? He's gone back into the pit lane where the medical car has taken its place. More or less under the podium. The car itself has just been checked out by the people who do that kind of thing, just to check it's ready to go if it will be needed. And that's the thing, isn't it, about these two guys? Sometimes they're not needed, Van der Merwe and Roberts. And that is a good weekend when they're not needed. Sometimes they can fly halfway around the world or all the way around the world, sit in that medical car for all weekend and not be needed. And that's a great weekend for them. But when they are needed, they're ready for all eventualities.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. What they want to get that barrier out of the way because it's on the service road. They need to get the barrier out of the way, metal barrier. Then they can put the concrete barrier back on there. And lock them together.
The concrete barriers you can attach them together.
Speedy way of doing this now.
Stuck, you know what I mean?
Obviously, say re-establishing normal sort of motorway style barriers is not the work of a moment. So they'll put these in place, lock them together. In a way, you're better. It depends on the angle you hit it, but you're better hitting something like that and sliding along it, rather than getting caught up in it, which is what happened to the Haas as it sort of pierced the barrier. And then all of the energy has to be dissipated somewhere. Normally in a really spectacular crash, you know, where you go down the track and lots of bits and pieces are coming out, all the energy dissipating that way. It's the sudden stop that hurts. And another part of, I use the word miracle cautiously, but it's kind of the word that keeps coming into my mind about that accident.
Yeah, I know. On Grosjean's car,
he wasn't
just
knocked
split
out.
in half.
That Romain wasn't knocked out in it, and or if he was, it was only temporarily. He could start to get out of it, because I don't know how.
He went through the barrier and he
people
cut in
would have been able to go into
effort.
that melee and try to get him out.
You have to extinguish the fire first before you can get into it.
You would. Then you've got to get the seat belts undone. Then you've got to lift, Romain out of the thing. You've got to sort of lift his weight out of it with his legs tucked down in the pedal box area.
You was it last year before, you did a feature with Dr. Ian Roberts, now Van der Merwe. The way that drivers' seats are made now, you can lift them out in the seat, can't you? But you'd still have to undo the seat belts as well.
Oh, you do, Crofty, but you've got to get attachments in there, and when they practice that, there's a tub, a chassis on the ground, and they rehearse it. It's not wedged in a barrier on fire.
No, exactly. You can see the concrete blocks that you were referring to now being brought to the scene to replace the barrier that is
they're replacing the barriers now.
Away. Paul,
replacing the barriers, so
race control. Paul, you've
this race will be
been watching quite a few replays over the last few moments. Come in and join us.
Yeah, I was just chatting with our producer, and you know, it's testament, because every weekend we come to, these guys are out there doing a high-speed check, you know, of the track to make sure they're comfortable. They're professionals as much as the drivers to be here driving those cars, to be on you know, the scene of that accident. And you could see straight away that Ian was straight over to the car to get Romain. Alan was in the back of the car getting the extinguisher, and they were straight in. And
it's good that
you know, their adrenaline must be crazy, because that's what you're trained for, but you never expect it to happen.
You never want it to happen.
But you could see, like Martin said, they knew exactly what they had to do, where they had to go, and everything in the process. And I just think when you look at how Formula 1 goes about ensuring this sport is safe, and these guys drive the halo decisions, they drive how things go, and there'll be a lot learned from this. But I mean, that is a survival cell. That's essentially, you can see how strong the Formula 1 car is sitting there. And I have never seen a car break in half like that for many, many years.
Was it John Watson, Monza in 1981? But he went in backwards, I think, in that, and there was a fireball in the car.
Martin Donnelly at Jerez.
Yes, very much
in
so.
the Lotus.
The halo,
I mean, you can see them.
It's got all ash.
We've seen the front of the
all over
monocoque break a bit like an egg back in the bad old days. But yeah, that's a nice speedy repair. So what we were seeing in the pit lane, the FIA were looking at Ferrari mechanics weighing pieces. You're allowed to change damaged pieces under the red flag in the pit lane, providing they don't weigh less than the pieces you're changing. They have to weigh at least the same, if not more. And they were just checking and taking photographs. Yeah, you can repair that damage. It's got to be an identical part. And what can you tell us, Ted?
Well, Martin, I've just been talking to a couple of engineers down here to understand how this could have happened. And the common theme is that almost certainly the halo has saved Romain Grosjean's life, because it parted the barriers. Forgive me if you've already seen this and said this. If the halo hadn't have been there, then it would have been nothing but Romain's crash helmet to make impact with those barriers. Yeah. Actually, the front part of the halo, almost like a sort of snowplow, parted the ways, and that's what saved him. Never mind the fire. Then I've been asking what has happened with the fire, and the common sort of theme seems to suggest that because effectively the chassis was ripped away from the engine, there are only a few 4 or 5 mounting points that mount the engine to the survival cell itself, that it's looking probable that it was actually the fuel collector that then was punctured and caught fire. Maybe the fuel collector holds what, 2 litres, 3 litres, something like that, Martin, of fuel, and it's about that amount of fuel they think that would have caused that big a fire.
Right.
The common sort of thought is that if the whole fuel went up, and that's
the McLaren put some
95 kilos, something like that.
Yeah, Lando Norris is still in 9th. He started 9th and stays 9th.
And tank itself. And
yeah, Perez gained up a few positions. He's in the podium places.
Get ready
that was at the beginning.
The race to start, or restart, I should say.
Yeah.
This is only a theory, but the theory, you know, and these are clever engineers who are telling me this. The theory is that it doesn't look like the fuel bag itself was punctured. Now, what's that bag made of?
50.
Very sort of stiff
Sebastian
rubber.
Vettel started 11th, now 15th.
You know, the kind of Kevlar.
He lost 4 places at the start, same as Bottas. He lost 4 places at the start. Bad start again.
Puncture resistant to a very high degree. It's not to say that it couldn't get punctured, but the thought is down here that it wasn't, and it was probably here you go, Crofty, some replays. It was probably the fuel collector that was punctured, and that's the fuel in there that went up. But yeah, the common thought is that the halo has saved Romain Grosjean's life today.
Yeah, it certainly played a massive role in that, hasn't it? They're very clever people, Ted, and I defer to them, but the void where the fuel tank normally sits was empty. There was nothing in it. Yeah. I think there was a bit more fuel than a collector, personally, but who knows?
Let's just talk about these replays that were being shown on the world feed of the start. You saw how Lando Norris, with contact with Esteban Ocon, damaged his front wing, and that contact there with Sebastian Vettel.
Lando Norris had a broken wing to start.
taking the
Broken wing, sparks are coming out of his car.
Just ahead. You were saying,
dropped a few.
Prepare for a lot of jockeying for position at the start of
Carlos
the race.
Sainz starts 15th now.
Well, it's just a rip of the tarmac of opportunity, isn't it? 1, 2 and 3.
Two positions, gain up Sainz on the start.
Everybody into the same space. And, yeah, whoa, it's more like dodgems, isn't it, really, than Formula One.
Yeah.
It really is. But, so, to reiterate, Roman's gone off on a straight.
Yes. Not
in a corner, really. That's why there's not the normal Tech Pro barriers protecting. It's not an area where you would normally, I'll say, under braking on the way in, on the way through, on the exit of a corner.
Yeah.
It's a third of the way up the straight towards turn 4.
So I think you're absolutely spot on, Martin, and that's why the drivers will take part in extraction tests as well. Is it the start of every season that they would do that? Alan van der Merwe, the medical car driver on hand with a fire extinguisher as well.
Yeah, well, part of the regulations, you've got to be able to exit the car within certain time frame and get your knees up past the bulkheads and generally be able to get out of the car. It's hard with the headrest in place, with the halo in place, with your hands device also attached, resting on your shoulders and with your helmet straight. You can't turn your head very far with the hands device on. You see the drivers at the end of a race struggling to get out of them at the best of times. There's a lot. Then you've got your radio cable, maybe your drinks tube as well. You've got a lot of stuff trying to stop you from getting out of the car.
When you need to get out in a hurry, though, you can still get out in a hurry. It's interesting, isn't it, when the hands device first came into Formula One, I don't think every single driver was totally accepting of the hands device. When the halo first came into Formula One, there was a lot of drivers saying that we don't really see the need, we don't really want a halo either. I don't think you're going to find a driver now, and not just because of tonight, that would disagree with the need behind the halo in Formula One and in other categories of motorsport single-seaters as well.
Another thing, his at least all of the rip-offs, but I think his visor had melted on his crash helmet. There was certainly some melted plastic, but at the start of a race they'd have a half a dozen rip-offs or tear-offs on there that where if their visor got dirty they could just, we've seen them release them. And then, but it looked to me as if the visor might well have been melted.
Just very quickly to Paul at Sky Race Control. Paul, you've had the stopwatch out in the last few moments.
In the car.
Yeah, we're having a look. It's obviously hard to get, but it's roughly 18 to 20 seconds from impact to getting out. Normally when drivers do jump out tests, they have to do it in under 10 seconds, but that's of course with nothing around you and nothing going on in a perfect scenario that you know it's going to happen. But I mean, that's impressive. That shows you how quick. And I tell you one thing I'm very fortunate for. It happened at turn 3. The medical car leaves the grid at the same time as F1 cars.
Yeah.
If that happened at turn 13, that medical car would not have been on site as quick. It arrives there literally at the pack. And those were the first guys there helping and Ian doing it. If that had happened further around the track.
Paul, thank you ever so much indeed. Paul de Resta at Sky Race Control, and there we can see the Haas, what's left of it, being put on the back of the low loader and to be taken back to the Haas garage. Goes without saying, new chassis will be needed for Bahrain in 7 days' time, 5 days' time, when we have a practice session for the Sakhir Grand Prix, penultimate race of this Formula One season. Let's hoping to hear in a moment from Alan van der Merwe, the driver of the medical car. I'm told there's an interview coming very quickly. Martin.
Say you're talking about needing another chassis in the way that Formula 1's with a race next weekend. They may need their reserve driver as well if if Roman's got a cracked rib or something like that. Who is?
Pedro Fittipaldi, I would imagine, will be called on for duty, but the Ferrari Academy, of course, have other drivers in that stable. We were going to see before the rain came down a few races ago. Mick Schumacher was going to do a test. Callum Eilert will be testing from that Ferrari Academy as well. But big ask to throw any of those drivers.
Yeah. Assuming they run a car, but I would imagine they will. But you know, maybe Roman will be okay. Let's hope so.
Certainly hope he will. But he's been taken to hospital, as we were telling you a few moments ago. The update from the FIA that he's been taken by helicopter to the MDF MC Military Hospital for further evaluation. Minor burns on his hands and feet, and possible broken rib as well.
Yeah, well, with that kind of retardation, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't find you know, a few problems here and there, because the G, the decelerative G there would be horrendous.
Yeah. If he has broken ribs as well, that you wouldn't be racing with that.
Absolutely not. No.
Well, not
if you got bruised ribs, you'd struggle in these cars now. The amount of lateral forces they pull.
So the sweeper out to get rid of as much of the debris, or all of the debris.
Sweeper's going to take out all the debris, and then
you can see where the barrier has been taken away and replaced with.
And then the race will be back up and going again, and we'll see who's going to
concrete blocks.
Get a good start this time.
The solution to the fixing of the barriers. Michael Massey, the race director, now running towards the safety car. Let's hear from the driver of the medical car now, Alan van der Merwe.
Yeah, the medical car driver is now talking.
Alan, very dramatic scenes with Roman's huge crash there. Can you describe what you found when you first got to the scene?
Big surprise for us as well. We've never seen that much fire. I mean, in 12 years, I've not seen that much fire at an impact like that. So we just took a little while to process what's going on. I'm sure it was only a second or so, but it felt like ages. And then Roman just actually started to get out of the car himself, which is pretty amazing after an accident like that.
You must have felt a huge sense of relief when you saw that happen.
Yeah, not yet. Some relief when we got back here and he was okay. It was very impressive. It just goes to show all the systems that we've developed. Everything worked, the halo, the barriers, the seat belts, everything worked how it should. And without just one of those things, it could have been a very different outcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, Melton medical car driver, the one who
medical and safety car garage. This is the scene in the pit lane here in Bahrain this evening. If you're just joining us, well, we'll be nearly an hour into this race.
When it was,
not even 2 laps into this race. Just seeing Gunther Steiner, the team principal of the Haas team, coming over to thank
Gunther Steiner, thanking the medical driver.
Good with his bum. Might be in his office in the back.
He's looking for Ian Roberts, I think.
Yeah, no,
thank you very much.
No,
honestly, you know, I mean, I was surprised how you fucking reacted.
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
that's what we're here for.
Apologies for Gunther Steiner's language. If you heard a swear
what do you
word
mean
there,
realise?
In the situation, it's understandable.
Oh yeah, yeah.
When all is
I know.
The race tonight,
there's always Spanish, Italian, and French streams.
Hotel. He, like Alan van der Merwe, like everyone
all
here,
the time. Same with me. Realise FX. Always Spanish, Italian, and them.
But the racing will go on.
And it will. So we'll take a big, deep breath here in the commentary box. Hand back to Simon in the paddock, and there is a race to be done here. And the first of 3 races here in the Middle East.
I know what you mean. Realise FX. I know what you mean.
He's already up into 2nd place. We'll be resuming in a short while. Simon.
Yeah, thanks, David. Just going back, Martin and I were lucky enough to have that first-hand experience working with the medical car team a few years ago in Singapore, and we know when things go wrong, they're there for, as Ted was saying, they're there so often and they don't have to get called into action. But when they do, they clearly did their job today, understated heroes. But the fact that the medical car, of course, was right behind the pack and on hand, they work with the marshals, we know that, they work with the local medical crews too. They brief them first, and these are some of the best marshals in the world here in Bahrain. They've got a lot of experience.
They have a lot of experience. They
bless him.
In the early years, of course, when the Grand Prix first
came
here.
He reminded me as well because
and in fact,
Niki Lauda had
we
a
flew
big
the
crash in
marshals
Monza,
to come from
that old
here
school
time
Monza
into India,
historic,
the Indian Grand Prix.
and
They're
his car
really
went on
exceptional
fire.
people here.
So,
and
yeah,
you know, they've got on with it, haven't they? Look at them.
it's like this one,
Well,
you
just
just
look at
reminded me
what they're replacing
realise.
it with now. They're replacing it with these temporary concrete blocks that can be attached together, and they'll secure that. And obviously, the race is not going to start again from the standing position until Michael Massey and the rest of the team are okay with what they have constructed. But going back to what Alan van der Merwe was saying with regards to all of the pieces of the jigsaw working correctly. Now, for a lot of people, they'll say, well, hold on, the Armco split open like a tin can, effectively, and the survival cell shot through it with the halo intact. Had that not happened, it could have been, I don't know if that's what I said, it could have been something
Oh, yeah, you did see the crash,
nasty. So why Armco doing the job like that compared to Tech Pro or a concrete block?
The FIA has a
the
safety
crash was
commission
bad, wasn't
and a
it?
circuit
Realised
commission that works
effects.
a lot to try
It
and
was
understand the way accidents happen. They will go and take all the data from this. They will research it.
Yeah, what was
for
that
the
guy
future.
saying? Was saying, bro,
but
I'm trying to hear.
to research for what we have today. So
I don't know
through
why
that
he said that,
process,
bro.
they work out based on the speed,
But
based on the
what
angle
time
of
out?
the track versus the angle
Time
of the
for 10
barrier.
minutes.
What is the optimum thing that you can put? Motorsport is dangerous. You can never plan and prepare for every eventuality, but they try and prepare in the best way possible in order to absorb the impact, as Alan rightly said. You know, if you come to it, if he had hit a tree and it got from a high speed to a stop, that could have been much worse for him, because then his human body has to absorb the impact. Here, the barrier is absorbing the G-force,
Spoke over
which
because
is
I was
what it's
talking.
supposed to
I was
do.
on a sentence.
There was some give there as well, and we don't want to go back, but I mean, I know, because we were all sat in the office watching that when that happened. You know, everyone goes straight into shock, and we've not seen that kind of impact. I don't think we've seen that kind of accident since Jules, have we, back at the Japanese Grand
And
Prix.
welcome to the channel, Realised
I
Effects.
remember that a British Grand Prix a couple of years back where Kimi Raikkonen went off right coming down the Wellington Straight and hit just before the bridge. That was a similar situation, although the barrier hit it at just a shallow enough an angle that he skidded along. And I think that Roman's managed to get enough lateral right-hand turning to hit the barrier and not be able to skid along, and he's penetrated, as you say. The barrier's steel barrier is made of 3 layers, and there's a gap in between, and so
feel free to go to my YouTube and follow to my Twitch.
And these cars are not shaped like road cars, for example. They don't have a large
side to
them. They have a very
feel free to follow as well.
Sharp and will penetrate.
Feel free to
what
follow.
we have to point out also is the cars nowadays are much heavier, so that's a much heavier mass and more momentum going through. You know, the cars today are 140 kilos heavier than when F1 first came here in 2005. They've got the batteries.
Thank you for the follow, Realised Effects. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the follow.
When this first unfolded,
Realised Effects.
it looks like when the cars got through the barrier, the back of the chassis, where
thank you for the follow, Liam SIN.
engine mount is snapped off.
Thanks for the follow.
That's ripped a bit of the chassis off, which appears to have pierced the fuel bag.
Thanks for the follow.
And I think that's where the fuels come out and ignite. I mean, listen,
you don't think it's the fuel collector? You think it potentially
well, the collector is also there, but the amount of fuel looks like, you know, when there was a shot from the helicopter showing the fuel drained down the side of that bank. That's more than the 2 or 3 liters, as Ted rightly said, you have in the collector. So, listen, as I said, I'm caveating everything by saying I'm speculating from the pictures that all of you are seeing at home. But you could make out where they show that shot at the back of the chassis. It was clearly a part of it had been ripped off, where the engine would have been ripped off in the accident.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that they're going to look at in great detail, but you cannot make these cars completely indestructible. There has to be a certain amount of occasions where some things are not, you can't maintain the integrity of it, and we have had you know, incidents at Spa last year, for example, where if it's unfortunate that they're hitting the right way, then they just can't take any more energy.
Let's go back though to the halo. Do you remember when we were having the debates? When it came in about aesthetics versus safety, we can't have those debates anymore, can we?
Welcome to the channel, people. Welcome.
You know, and honestly, you look at the car, I don't even notice the halo anymore. It's become part of the car now, hasn't it? So I think it's a bit like the hands device. We have to just move on from that debate. This is where literally ended the conversation.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Agreed. I just
wonder,
this has been when you see something and you. I don't know if you've been involved in races like this. Certainly you have, Damon. Let's take you back I know it's not easy when you think back to that day, but you know, when you saw Ayrton's accident back at Imola and you were part of that race, how did you gather yourself back together? I know that this is a different situation, that obviously Roman, and we're hoping he's okay and it's just broken ribs and minor burns, but it's a huge impact, and a lot of guys would have had a real first-hand look at that. You know, that's
well, I mean, in the case of, I think there's not many people who've been through motor racing without experiencing some, witnessing some sort of accident at some point or other. So you became a little bit inured to it. But there's this is particularly graphic. I mean, this was particularly shocking. You know, nobody in their right mind could not understand what.
Yeah, it's time to get ready now. Barriers
Fire's
off.
The biggest unknown, isn't
ready
it?
To get back racing again.
That the FIA and teams and drivers are most afraid of, because you can't plan for that. You can't plan for how
stay tuned, feel free to follow.
It's going to ignite,
so stay tuned.
What size of the fire, or how, you know, the way it's going to happen. So that to me has been the biggest scare from what we've seen today, is just how that ignited. And I'm sure that is actually what the FIA and Formula One from their safety side will be trying to understand, is, you know, how do you protect the back of the chassis to make sure the fuel bag, because also, let's not forget, guys, these are hybrids. You've got batteries there. Yeah. You know, you've got lithium-ion batteries there, and that's another safety concern that the FIA will be studying.
They will. No confirmation of a restart as yet. You can see the pit lane is still very busy, and a few of the drivers just making their way out, it would seem, towards their cars. I just want to come back to you guys upstairs